This week, we will learn how to create the event plan. First, I want to go back to our framework of event production that guides our class. We are entering the Module 1 assessment, and which will have three components. This week, we will covering something related to creating the events plan. The following weeks, we will learn how to develop the event site and something related to the infrastructure of the events. Every week, we will go back to this, the framework to remind all of us. This is learning objectives we want to reach through this week's learning. When we try to create the events plan, there are three things can help us: intent, the extent, and content. All the three things will contribute to creating the events plan. The intent refers to the purpose of the events. Second, the extent refers to the scope of an event. Lastly, content refers to the programs and the activities of an event. Tent 1, intent, which refers to the purpose. We need to meet with our clients and figure out the purpose for them to hold the events. Following are the things you need to do in order to figure out the purpose. We will need to meet with our clients to ask what are their expectations. And we also need to meet with the clients to specify the goals and objectives they hope to reach through holding the event. Additionally, when you already met with the clients and already know their needs and expectations, you will need to confirm whether this is something they refers to, and also help them to put all the goals and objectives in a prioritized hierarchy. Another question you may think and ask is, why does someone hold an event? What's the reasons for them to hold the events? So this is kind of associated with the typical events objectives. So we have so many different objectives, kind of help us to understand the purpose of holding an event. Additionally, when we understand the purpose of the event, we will need to help the clients to put a better purpose on the plan in order to promote our event. So for a conference, this is a total the cost for attendees to go to a conference, which is $2,100 US dollars. When we try to put our purpose on the plan and to market our event, we need to achieve a positive ROI, which is return on investment. So we need to tell our attendees, once they attend the conference, they can come away from the conference with a $2,100 US dollar idea. So when we try to help the clients to set up the goals, the purpose, the objectives, we need to make sure the objectives we set up is a SMART objective. So when we are talking about a SMART objective, we mean the objectives has to be first specific and also measurable. It needs to assignable. The objectives is realistic. Finally, the objective need to be time related. So this is how we mean by setting up SMART objectives. SMART means specific, measurable, assignable, realistic, time related. Following are the detailed informations by what we mean by specific, the measurable, assignable, realistic, and time related. So when we are talking about specific, we need to be when we are targeting an objective, the objective must be specific. And it needs to have some measurable indicators for us to track whether the objective is achieved or not. Assignable is when we are set up the objective, we will need to be include the information of someone who is assigned by our the organization to achieve this goal. And also the objective need to be realistic to achieve, and also need to have a specified duration. Here are two the examples for you to consider whether the two objectives here is smart or not. Use a minute to read these two objectives. We would say like the first one is not smart because it's not specific, measurable, and time framed. It doesn't have a time related information included. And the third one we consider is also not smart because it's not specific enough or time related. How can we revise these two objectives to be smart? Following just my proposed ways for you to think. So in order to revise the first objective to be smart, we need to include time frame. For example, by the end of the October. To be more specific, we need to define the people is full-time employee. We have full-time employee have completed 75% of the selected scientifically based event management curriculum developed by the CVent University. So we add the numbers and also we add more information to be specific. The second one, in order to be a smart objective, we revise the second objective like this. By the end of this year, CVent University educators will have delivered lessons on assertive communication skills to 90% of event participants in the effective event management curriculum. So we add a lot of information to be specific and also to make sure it's time related. They are just two the examples for you to use in the future how we can set up smart objectives. So in Tent 1, we learned how we can set up a purpose of the event to understand the Tent 1 intent of the event. And now we're going to Tent 2, something related with setting up a scope for an event. So this is a project management. So first, when we are trying to do the event project, the management, we need to understand the scope. First, we will need to set up the strategic analysis to understand the purpose of expected outcomes. So after Tent 1, we understand the purpose of event. For example, a person wants to hold a wedding. So we can understand the purpose of the person who wants to hold the event is for wedding purpose. And we can conclude, the purpose of the event is I need a wedding reception. And then we move to the product analysis. We need to define the type of the event and also components of the event. What kind of components should the event include? So there is 6 honest surveymen can help us from why, who, where, when, what to how. This is specific information regarding the 6 honest surveymen to help us to determine the components of the event. And some additional some additional the questions you may also want to check up during your meeting with the clients. Additionally, we will need to do a feasibility analysis in order to determine whether we have enough uh, resources to use. So by the resources, we refers to time, the money, the personnel, information, the space, whether we have some enough suppliers. When we already have all the resources, we also need to understand how we can do a better management. Refers to allocating, directing, and controlling all the resources in order to achieve our objectives. So this is the feasibility analysis. Alright, so you may ask, oh, I already know this is something I have. However, I don't have enough time. What should I do? Or if I don't have enough people to help with me do the events, what should I do? When we are doing the feasibility analysis, when we are in a situation of not having enough resources in one area, we can do a better job of rebalancing all the resources that we have. For example, if we don't have enough time, we can recruit more people. However, if we don't have enough people to help us with the event, we can spend more money to recruit people. And nowadays, some new technologies can help us to reduce level requirement of certain resources. After we have understood the scope for a project, we are moving towards making a project a plan. And one thing when we are making a project a plan is we need to determine the tasks we need to complete during the events, which refers to the elements during the events planning. And after we already know all the tasks and the elements during the events, we need to do a logical sequencing. In project management, this is also known as activity sequencing, which, put it simple, is begin with the end in mind. Put first things first, which means we need to prioritize all the activities and put the most important one at the first. And this is some rules we can use to make the flow charts. In terms of the flow charts, we have 4 different the formats to do the activity charts, which is also the flow charts. In addition, we also need to have a timeline for our events management team to have, which includes the date, the activities, responsibility, and some interdependency notes for the events management team to use. For example, Fred is taking care of activity 1, and the second team member, which is named Ginger, she must have information from Fred's research in order to complete activity 2. So this is kind of set up a timeline of our plan to plan for the events. These are another 2 the formats to do the timeline. However, I personally prefer the first one because this one gives us some more information about the interdependency record. Also, we need to make a schedule for the events. So timeline and a schedule is not the same thing. Timeline is for the events management team to have prior to the events. So they need to follow the timeline to complete a certain the elements in the event's management process. However, a schedule is for attendees to have during the events. So, a schedule should including the information of time and at what place a certain activity is happening during the events. Content 3 is a content which refers to the programs and the activities. We'll talk about the activities of an event in the following weeks. So we won't spend time to talk about the activities right now. This is how we conclude this week's lecture. I hope you enjoyed this week's learning.